Seriously, first live stream of the
year. Wow. Well, all of a sudden, all these people just bloom, just plopped in here.
Boom, shalaga boom. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So, this is what happened.
What happened was. Okay. So, or how far back are you going to go? Or are you just going to talk about us trying to film it?
I'm just talking about us trying to film it right now.
No, we might need to start it off just like we were going to start off the video. So, what happened is when we were putting together the premiere, we started like a week ago.
We started long farther than that.
And, well, getting all the shots and stuff together. We literally had our board full of everything.
Notes,
shot list, everything.
We storyboard the
everything
out of it.
Well, then we went to film, and it started to rain. So then we had to scrap that and start filming inside. So we started to do that, and we had an idea of what way we wanted the video to go.
But as we started doing it, we just didn't have any peace about it.
It didn't feel right. There was so... Hey, Suburban. And so we were going to... We looked at the overall film, and we're like, this isn't going to work. This needs to be 2 separate videos. Because for one, we didn't want to bore you to death trying to tell you where we had been.
Which we're going to do tonight.
In order to get you to where... Because what we felt like was that you needed to know why we had the confidence that we had to be able to take this step out to do what we're doing this year.
To be able to... Hi, Mama. To be able to you know, that's a pretty big step to say, we're done with the broken food system.
Right.
And so... We felt like with the video, at least we thought that you guys needed that a little bit of that backstory. But we just didn't get any peace about it. And so God was kind of like, no, 2 videos.
And also, we know that some of you know some of the story. Mm-hmm. And some of you may know a lot of the story. But not everybody knows the whole story. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things that we've kind of kept behind the curtain. And so we're kind of letting that all out tonight. And so we were going to do that on film. And no matter what we tried to do, cameras would shut off, light batteries would die. There was a whole bunch of stuff that just
And then by the time when we did get filming and we got to talking and everything, and next thing we know, we've been bumping our gums for over an hour. And we were just like,
that's not going to work.
This is better off done as a live stream. Mm-hmm. Because, one, you guys can interact with us while we're doing it. And I think to be able to be live and watch our emotions, hear the tone of our voice,
and also be able to share it with you and be able to see reactions like straight off. Because I know there's going to be some pictures we show that you guys are going to be like, oh, you know. And, or I remember that, or whatever, that we wouldn't normally get from just a comment.
Yeah. And this is not a premiere type video that we should do it as a premiere. And we just felt that it was better off as a live stream because everything was working against us to get it out as a
regular video.
Yeah. And so, without further ado, so, as a lot of you guys know, Robin and I have been married almost, it'll be 15 years this November. And we just celebrated our 14th anniversary.
Right.
But what you guys don't really know is shortly after Robin and I got married, that's when God really laid it on our heart to become sustainable, to start to go back and live how He intended us to live.
Right.
To go out and work the ground with our hands and raise animals and be sustainable. He really laid that on our heart. And with the making of the premiere video, like Robin said, we started when we started laying things out.
Something became very apparent.
Very apparent, and to the point where Robin and I had to kind of take a time out, and we prayed, and we kind of got a little emotional about it, because there were times in this last decade plus that we really felt that, at least, let me rephrase, I felt that with some of the just plain out nastiness that went down, that we were alone.
Awesome, Marine.
That God kind of washed his hands of us there for a little bit, we felt.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until we really started to look back that we went, oh, you were there, and that's what you were doing.
Look at this dirty sister of mine, Robin. Potluck at my house on Saturday. Theme is Italian food.
Who was that?
Julie.
Oh.
Will Sir Hops-a-Lot be there?
Oh. Oh. Mm.
Love you, Professor.
This is not how we start off a new decade. But back in 2006 is when...
Wait, what? I love y'all, but to be completely honest, the intro is due to be changed or shortened. I'm sure the pig has been frozen by now. Yeah, we do need to change it.
He's looking at you, Suburban.
I can relate to feeling alone.
Yeah. Can you turn that heater down, please? Back in 2006, we started this journey of sustainable living and homesteading. We were on a small...
Half an acre. 0.54 acres.
Plot.
And it was a weird plot. It went like a backward Z. It was really weird.
And we were in the middle of the ghetto. Ghetto.
I love you, Professor.
And and we started with quail. Quail was our gateway animal, not chickens. We had a small garden, quail,
chickens, bees, rabbits. We even had a little potbelly pig for a little while.
Yep.
That Peter had me toasty.
You know, it was there that the hook got set because of this.
Yep. All of a sudden, we walked out to the coop, which was really a
outhouse,
concreted over outhouse, and we walked out there, and Jason found the first egg. And we took it inside, and I just couldn't wait. I had to crack it open. And I put it on a frying pan, and I was like, oh my God, there's something wrong with our chickens. And Jason's like, what is wrong? And I'm like, have you ever seen an egg do this, ever? And I'm like, he's like, what do you mean? It was the first time I'd ever seen a fresh egg before. The yolk was on top of the white, and it looked like a big orange golf ball. And come to find out, that's what a fresh egg looks like. And like Jason and I were talking earlier, I think that's really where we truly were like, this is really cool. Like, we need to keep doing this.
That one egg right there is where the hook got set. And
then the garden was so productive that year. And we learned a lot from it that we applied the next year.
Now, I want everybody to keep in mind that this was 2 years. From the time that we started until our first blessing came was about 2 years. We took, we had 2 gardens there. We started these, those where we finally got that egg came from a hen that we hatched out in an upright incubator that Blaze and I made for a homeschool science project. And so from there, of course, and we added the rabbits and blah, blah, blah. But our very first blessing came when we were able to move out of
the ghetto. Out to the country. And we doubled our land size. Tripled. We went from half an acre to an acre and a half. We were stoked. We were excited. And it was also the first time where we were
I thought it was 2.5 because we were more. The other one, we got a total of 5.
Maybe it was. No, it was 3. We went 1.5 and 1. Oh no, maybe it was 2.5. Yeah, so we really we totally blew it out of the water. Whatever the case, we had way more land. We were so excited. It was the first time that we were more interested in the land than we were the house that was on the land.
Yeah, because it was a little.
This is a theme that goes with us. So we moved into this little bitty tin can, but we were excited because we had all this acreage. Well,
that's when we learned the first
2.5. Okay.
First lesson. I thought you were getting pallets.
He's listening.
That's when we learned the very first lesson that just because you have 2.5 acres doesn't mean you have
2.5 acres.
2.5 of usable acreage. And so that was a lesson that we had to learn. We learned a lot about being able to manage a property.
We learned about the importance of flat acreage versus 45-degree acreage, because our house was at the top of a 45-degree angle going down. And the problem was, at the bottom of that hill was all of our barns. And whenever it would rain, all of the erosion and all of the water would rush down the hill and it would flood our barns. And when we finally got real pigs, we had them in those barns to be able to have their babies, and we darn near lost babies to a flooding. Like, we were out at 3 o'clock in the morning with pickaxes. All of us, even Carol, Ladessa was little, but everybody was digging out. I mean, I remember Carol with one of those little trowels, like digging out dirt in the rain. Like, it was ridiculous. And so we learned very quickly, we learned a lot of lessons on that property. We learned about power companies spraying power lines.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of jumping ahead of some of the pictures.
I'm sorry. Jason has pictures.
Yes. We,
Yeah, you have the pictures. You need to tell all the stuff.
At this property, we really started to learn a lot about infrastructure. And this is where we learned about building a pig pen with pallets and cinder blocks. And here's a picture.
And little helpers.
This is a picture that is, if this doesn't melt your heart, then I don't know.
I don't have anything for you.
You got something wrong with you right here. But this is a picture of...
Oh, that's my little Dessa monster.
Of me sitting right there on some cinder blocks, and my little chunky monkey, my little helper, right there with me. Ladessa was so
2 years old.
Tiny.
She was 2.
2.
Yeah. In that picture, she was 2 years old.
The cinder block.
Yeah, is as big as she is.
Is bigger than she was.
Yeah. The hat. That hat was like super big.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So she was out there with us, helping us do everything. She would do whatever she could to help. She loved it.
But as you can see, behind us there's that initial pallet wall for our very first pallet pig pen.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really learned a lot about infrastructure, what was working, what wasn't working, with stuff like that.
We also learned about the difference between wild pigs and domesticated pigs.
This is when we also got involved with our very first group. There was a little hobby farmers group that started on Facebook, and it grew to a hobby farmers association, which I ended up being the president with for a very short time. And we would have classes and stuff periodically throughout. And at one class, little Odessa fell in love with goats. And we had the hardest time getting... Somebody bought that goat before we could. And
that's later down the road, so yeah, Ladessa fell in love with goats.
This is where Ladessa fell in love with goats. Somebody had already purchased that goat before we got there, and so that was a little bit of a hard day because Ladessa didn't want to let that one go. But this is where, for the very first time in this group, I also did some speaking engagements where we were talking about sustainable farming, because we were following Salatin's, we were ingesting and digesting, and we were being a Joel Salatin sponge at that particular point in time in our career. We were reading all of his books, Pastured Poultry, Salad Bar Beef.
Everything I Want to Do is Illegal.
Everything I Want to Do is Illegal. All of these books, we were just consuming them. And so we started practicing what we were doing, and people started practicing what we were learning. People noticed it, and then we started putting our twists on things, and then that's when people started asking us to speak at different locations and things like that. Okay, you need to take over because I need to upload some more pictures.
What do I need to talk about?
Well, keep going with the story.
So at that point in time, we were still living in Grovetown. We had a lot of things some successes that we had happen while we were on that property. We successfully raised a Black Angus bull. I don't have that picture. Okay, you don't need a picture of it. We had a Black Angus bull that we raised from the time that he was a calf. He was orphaned. We bottle fed him all the way up until it was time for slaughter. And being able to have that on our plate and eat that made us, really start to get pumped about doing all those different, raising our own food. And we also went from going to cows, we went to domesticated pigs. We learned the difference between, when we first started with pigs, we had like a Russian boar-ish kind of razorback breed, and we had a big problem with them roaming. And so what ended up happening is we learned real quick that this was not the right kind of pig for us. So we started looking for new pigs. We ended up getting pigs that were a Yorkshire, and brought those onto the property and started to not really have any problems with wandering. Like, they definitely, stayed put. The two girls were excellent, very friendly. And then we got, that both of them were pregnant. We ended up, both had babies. And then this is where we really started having some serious loss issues. We learned very quickly, one, that pigs can be extremely protective of their young. We had a couple of instances where the moms, if they heard us, because we wanted to tag babies' ears, and if the moms heard us going after the babies and the babies squealing, they would practically knock down the pallet fence to get to us. So we had to be really careful with that. Also, we had to be very careful of the boar as well. And then one day we had babies, and we went out there to check on the mama, and she wasn't doing all that well. And she wasn't getting up to go eat. And next thing we knew, she was septic. And it was the middle of the night. We were calling friends. We had a friend who had a vet that was, she worked for a vet. We tried to save her, and it ended up not happening. She had 2 babies that were still alive. We brought them into the house. One of them made it. One of them didn't make it through the night. And that next morning, Carol decided that it was going to be her life's goal to raise this baby piglet. And that kind of is where that hook got set. She then became the little Dr. Doolittle of the family.
Yes.
She loved her baby piglet. And this is a picture of her with Wilbur. Now, if you look really close, you will see that that pig has a harness on. She walked that pig everywhere
she went.
We went.
Home Depot, Lowe's.
It walked with her everywhere.
Everywhere.
She had it trained. It was potty trained in the house. Mm-hmm. Never peed in the house.
It would go to the door.
He loved to wait for the laundry to come out of the dryer, and then he would climb up underneath all of the laundry, and he would hide up underneath the laundry. He was the sweetest thing. He took a bottle really well. Carol, with that Hobby Farmers group, we went to we had a booth with the Hobby Farmers, and she was kind of like an outreach. Like, she would tell everybody, that's Carol, she would tell everybody about how she saved this piglet, and this was her piglet, and she took it seriously. That was a very big deal for her. And that's kind of where we had more loss.
Well, she became a little celebrity at this festival.
Yeah.
Because she was walking around the festival with the pig on the leash. And then people would hunt her down, mm-hmm. and then they decided that they were going to pay her to take pictures with her. And so somebody said, well, if I pay you $1, can I take a picture with you and your pig? And of course, Carol was like, yeah. And so that became the running thing. Mm-hmm. And she walked out of that festival with like, what, $50, $60?
Yeah, she took a lot of pictures.
Yeah. And so she took that money and she put it towards Wilbur's feed and...
Mm-hmm. And he stayed in the house. He slept with her.
Yep.
He slept on the bed with her. He was her buddy. And then he started getting a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. And it started getting warmer outside. And so we decided it was okay to go ahead and put him out because it was starting to be like 50, 60 at night.
He started lifting furniture.
Yeah. Yeah.
He would try to lift up the couch and then get underneath the couch to go take a nap. And
he was too big.
He was busting laundry baskets when he was trying to get in there.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those that we told her there was going to be a time where he was going to have to go outside.
She was okay with it.
And she was okay with it. And we had a stall barn at that time. And she had the stall all...
She took all day to put hay in the stall and make him a little nest area for him to lay down in.
Had a heat lamp ran out there.
She went down there and laid with him until we told her it was time to come inside. Thank God we did. Because God knows. So the next morning, she wakes up super early because she wants to go see Wilbur because she had to spend the night without him. And she goes out there, and we hear her scream. And start crying. And this is hard for me because it was really hard to see my baby upset. she comes back in and she's like, Wilbur's dead. And there was no reason for Wilbur to be dead. It wasn't too cold. He was fine. Well, then we start walking around to do chores, and we had
a calf dead.
A dead calf. We had dead turkeys.
Dead ducks.
We had dead ducks. We
dead
had
chickens.
Dead animals all over the place. And they hadn't been attacked. It was as if they just fell asleep and didn't wake up.
Yeah.
After a day or two, we put it all together because we started trying to figure out what was the common thread.
And it was the hay.
But it wasn't because it was bad hay.
That same day that we put Wilbur outside, the power company, Georgia Power, came through. One of their subcontractors came through, and they had a young kid, and they were clearing power lines. Well, after they cut everything down, they spray. It was a windy day. And come to find out, they get paid off of the amount of the spray that they use.
Because they gauge that as that's how many places they treated.
Yeah. And so when I finally saw the kid, he was halfway up my driveway just doing this number, nowhere near a telephone pole. He just spraying.
He was going down our fence line.
And I went to screaming and hollering and fussing and had to get the law out there. And
didn't think anything more of it.
I didn't think about the drift. And we had a huge loss that we really couldn't afford at that time.
Mm-mm.
And when we called Georgia Power, their attitude was, prove it.
When it happened, we actually called friends over because Carol was destroyed.
Yeah.
She couldn't even, she was crying so hard she couldn't even breathe. Like, it was bad. And so we called over her godparents or grandparents, whoever, and they all came over to the house.
Everybody was dressed to the nines.
We had a funeral for the pig.
For Wilbur.
For Wilbur. And
and that was hard.
And then when we call and talk to them, they're like, well, you could get a necropsy done to prove it. And we're like, we've already put the pig in the ground. We're not digging him back up.
And so we learned a lesson about dealing with commercial power companies and putting up signs that are very intentional. This is an organic farm. Do not spray.
Yeah.
We take responsibility for the power line on our property to keep it cut back and clear.
And if something happens, we're responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've never had anything happen because we're responsible for it. We take care of it. So we lost that. We had a tremendous amount of loss at that property. And there was a lot of what we really look at as pruning. Like, yes. We felt like this was the period where God was pruning us and kind of shaping us to get the knowledge that we needed to be prepared for the next blessing that he was going to provide for us.
Right.
And so then...
Because this was basically our first 7 years in this. 7 years. And so we had 2 years of kind of rest where we were just getting introduced to this lifestyle, having some successes with this lifestyle, and then like a 5-year pruning stage where we got planted and we grew all kind of crazy, and so God had to prune us back to keep us healthy, and then
encourage us to grow in the right direction.
To grow in the right direction, to grow healthy, to be able to produce good fruit. Then we received a blessing. And that blessing was this homestead that we're on now.
Right.
Now, this blessing did come with a 2-year rest period. When we had all the paperwork done, we were completely approved for this property, had absolutely no problem with that. Unfortunately, this property would not appraise.
It had been neglected.
And so we made out a rent-to-own type deal where a percentage of the rent that we paid went towards the down payment when we could finally get it appraised. And Robin and I said, you know what? We're treading water for about 2 years, and let's see what the housing market does. Let's see where the interest rates go. And this is when they were dropping.
And I'll be honest, we didn't want to put anything into it in case we changed our minds within that 2-year period, or they changed their minds within that 2-year period. We didn't really want to put too much into it and then be like, what did we do? And so we didn't, we left it to where it was a bare minimum. We put our animals on here, but we didn't invest in any major infrastructure. We didn't do anything, that was going to add too much value. The other thing was we didn't put out a lot of social media stuff, and that was intentional as well. We, the people that we were buying from found us through YouTube and through Facebook. And so we knew that they watched what we did. And so we didn't want, I mean, I'm sure you can kind of get where I'm going with this. We didn't want there to be too much going on and them knowing too much about what was going on until it was ours at the end of the day. So then we finally purchased the house in 2013.
Yes, we did.
And that was a huge thing. Like, we brought the kids with us. They helped us sign the papers. Like, this was a huge ordeal. To the point, and Jason's getting ready to pull out the picture, we took the kids out to eat. We had this big, huge celebration. Everybody dressed up. And it was like a big deal. Because Jason had told the kids, like, this was a big goal of his. He wanted to own a house before he turned 40. And we made it just about in time. And so he was really excited about that. So we took everybody out to eat and celebrated our first home.
We went to a steakhouse.
Yeah.
Is where we went to.
Yeah.
And we all had steak, and we had just a super good time.
Laughing and giggling, carrying on. So we were excited. Like, this is now our place, and we can do what we want. We were super stoked about that. So that was August. It was the end of the growing season. We had not really put in any kind of gardens or anything like that. What we had been doing was basically getting the pigs to kind of turn up some of the land. Because there was a lot of granite where we were. And so we had the pigs turning up the ground to be able to prepare it for a garden. Well, then when we finally, got the deed in our name, then it was game on.
Well, we got the deed in our name, and I had to be the typical husband.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep. Even though we'd lived in the place for almost 2 years, Jason was like, I have to carry you over the threshold.
Got to carry you over the threshold.
Now that we own the house. So we came in, and you can see the look on our faces. Like, we are stoked. We're excited. We've got 21 acres, and there is no stopping us. So that fall, and if you look, before you turn that off, I want everybody to look behind me there. If you look, you can see the trees. You see all those trees there, and there's a fence, white fence there. It's a totally different background than what it is now.
Yep.
So we have the house. It's August. We start planning what we're going to do. That following year, we were ready to start growing stuff. We started putting plants in flats to grow. We were really booking it. And we started putting out YouTube videos. Because now it didn't matter if we put out YouTube videos.
Right.
So we started doing YouTube again, pretty hardcore. And that's when we found.
They found us.
Well, we came into contact with the Homestead Network. And that was in, what did I say, June of 2016? So in June of 2016, we started with the Homestead Network. And I'm looking through the chat. There are several of you that remember us during that time.
I think Suburban was with us at that time.
Old Ways, New Times.
Old Ways, New Times. Anita. Lone Star.
Incense.
There's a couple of y'all in there. I think maybe Mark.
But there were several. Yeah. And we. I think this is where you need to do your talking. I know you're doing pictures, but.
Okay, give me that. I'll put up one more.
He's got to do his pictures, guys. Up.
What?
Haskins family, what's up? They're hopping in before they head to church.
Well, I don't necessarily know if I would hop.
So we started with the Homestead Network, and really what happened is when we found, or they found, or whoever found, we felt like that was an awesome idea. It was an awesome concept. The idea that we could reach people through teaching has always been our goal. And this was a perfect platform, we thought. And, hey, Kaylee, what's up? And so we were excited. And you can look at some of those videos. We were excited to start teaching. But then some stuff happened.
Well, when I was first contacted by the Homestead Network, they asked if I wanted to be a part of the community. And anytime you use the word community, it has a certain stigmata that goes with it. And how I explained how the network was supposed to go, I was all in. I think I was probably the one that was promoting the Homestead Network the most. I was a huge team player.
Yeah, we wanted this to be a good, successful thing where everybody's input would help other people.
And you had channels were supposed to be supporting channels, and there was a live stream lineup on how it was supposed to go.
Schedule.
We're supposed to stick to your time frame and then tell everybody to go on over to the next channel. And, everybody was running 60, 80, 100 deep some nights on live streams. We never got that high, but we got up 50, 60. We only had about 1,000 subscribers then. This was all before all the rules of YouTube come down about monetization and everything. And we were with the network about a year and a half.
Not even.
Not even?
Not even. We started in June and we left in March. So about 9 months.
9 months. The simplest version that we can put it is that the network went from being about community to about being about one channel. And it was not portraying the community aspect. There was things not being portrayed as family friendly. And we decided...
We didn't like the direction it was going.
We didn't like the direction it was going. If there was some moral issues and stuff that we were having. And so we put in our resignation letter and announced it on our Saturday night live stream. We have been doing the same Saturday night live stream since the Homestead Nowhere.
Yep. 8 o'clock on Saturday.
And that's when
the proverbial
poop hit the oscillation.
Excrement hit the oscillation device.
A lot of you guys know, a lot of you guys that are in this chat box right now, that night in that live stream
was embarrassing.
There was a channel that showed its true colors. And we knew then, right then and there, that we
did the right thing.
We did the right thing.
Yeah. But it took a long time, because when that happened, we went through, and some of you know, but a lot of you don't, we went through a lot of personal attacks. Mm-hmm. We had to change we had to turn off our phone number.
Our home phone.
Our
landline.
We had to, for a small time, take our address off of our website and our website information.
We had to put hardcore filters on emails. We had to change email addresses. I mean, we had to do a lot of things. Yeah.
It was ridiculous. But all that to say, it completely changed who we were at that point. Yeah. We had gone from being trusting, giving, just over the top, wanting to teach people, to all of a sudden it was like all of the air was sucked out of our balloon. All of our sail was completely flat. Like, we lost all joy to teach, to grow, to do anything. We were basically going through the motions.
Yeah, and we weren't even going through good motions. The best way to put it is, it put us in a little bit of a depression, because some of these people were supposed to be part of our inner circle. And the way that they just attacked and got nasty, it stole our joy. It stole our focus. And it really, it took our world and basically, it just flipped it upside down. And it robbed us of a lot of things. You know, Medea, I love how Medea always, when she tries to explain how friends are, she said, friends, you know, you have friends that are like parts of a tree. You have friends that are leaves, friends that are branches, and friends that are roots. You have lots of friends that are leaves. But as soon as a good storm comes, boy, they drop off and fly away.
Or the end of the season, all of those leaves drop and they're gone.
Right. The branches, they'll weather a little bit of a storm, but when it gets hardcore, it'll snap off and it'll go away. The ones that you've got holding on to the bottom, the roots, they're going to do their best to not let your tree fall over.
Mm-hmm. And even if it does,
they're still going to be there holding.
Yeah.
And there were people that we thought were roots
that
weren't. And so there was even a little bit of a grieving process there.
Well, and then there's that whole, fool me once,
right?
Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Mm-hmm.
So after we had all that happen, everybody was at an arm's distance.
Yes.
Even some of these people that are in the chat, it was really hard for us to still trust people.
Right. And for those of you that are in the chat that
are still
around, and you may, at one point in time, we may have kind of pushed away from you, or, if you're somebody that we did push away and you're just watching this on the replay, this is the time that Robin and I want to say that we are sorry.
Or, we told you that we were going to meet you like 5 separate times somewhere, and then we didn't meet you.
It was out of fear that we never showed up, or we always had reasons why we didn't come. It was there was this self-protected wall that we were trying to put around ourselves where we just wanted to be kind of shut off from the world because we didn't want to have to go through that hurt and pain again.
We even protected our kids because our kids were kind of getting dragged into it as well.
Yeah.
And so it all of a sudden became this big, huge bubble just around our family that we didn't want anybody getting in.
Yeah.
And so we were very guarded for a good while.
And if Robin and I hurt you in any way from that, please know from our deepest spot in our hearts that we apologize. It wasn't meant on purpose. Again, it was done out of fear.
And what we thought was self-preservation.
Right. And so it robbed us so much, and we were getting out of this lifestyle that I took a job managing a dairy. And I was managing this dairy, and I brought Blaze along with me.
Even Ladessa.
Ladessa was coming once in a while and helping and having fun doing it because Ladessa has always been about this type of lifestyle and everything. And so we managed this dairy for a good little while. And we all had our parts in it and doing different things. Me and the owner of the dairy, we were able to work together, but we really didn't see eye to eye.
Because he had a different plan in mind.
His interest was more in flipping cows versus then keeping some in there to keep the dairy functional. And so we had this. Now, we were getting paid really good money.
We basically doubled our income.
And one of the requirements with that job is I had to have a truck. I had to have a truck that was able to pull. And so this job awarded me the financial freedom to be able to buy my dream truck. And so I had my dream truck. And then one day out of the blue, we got a message.
Oh. Go ahead.
We got a message from a little tiny angel. She didn't know she was being an angel, but she was. She didn't know what she was doing, but that little person is Amy Fuel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so she was putting together her little brainchild that we now all lovingly call the Homesteaders of America. And she asked Jason if he would come to the Homesteaders of America conference, the inaugural event they were going to have in Virginia. And we were working at the dairy, so we were financially able to just drop everything we were doing and come. We were excited. So we loaded everybody. No, we didn't load everybody up. It was just you and me. We did not take the girls that first year. It was just us. And we showed up. And we had dinner the night before with, who was it? Tommy?
No, it was Nunda and
did you say Tangy?
Tangy.
So we went to this Irish pub and the food was amazing.
Oh, no, that was at the conference. The night before the conference, we had dinner with...
Who did we have dinner with?
Nunda and Tangy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
But it wasn't at the Irish pub. It was the Airbnb that Nunda rented. because we had all those steaks.
Oh, that's right. We did. That's right. The night before, we went out to Nunda had rented an air. That was our first experience with a Airbnb, and so they rented this place. We went out there. We ate. It was amazing. So then we go to the conference. Well, actually, that day we had helped set up, and that worked out really well. And we met a couple of people that we haven't, had not really met too much. Now, earlier in that year, Amy had sent us to a place in Tennessee that was not far, that we went and visited with people that were going to be going to the Homesteaders of America conference. She was already starting to pump it up. And we met Teresa Dean there that night.
Sherry and
we also met Sherry and Daryl. It was our first time meeting them. So fast forward to the Homesteaders of America, we met up with them again. We also met up with Tommy and Patty, and we met up with Nunda again. Had a blast with all of them. Met up with Amy. Amy was running around like a chicken with her head cut off. That first one and every one since. Mm-hmm. But we had a really good time. We got to meet a lot of like-minded people, and we got to spend a lot of time with developing new relationships. There were two other things that happened at that Homesteaders of America conference that kind of started to put the wind back in our sail. Mm-hmm. One, Jason got a chance to meet with Doug.
Yes. With Doug from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. I finally got to meet and shake Doug's hand. And I felt like because, and those of you that were around during that time, knew that there was a bit of drama between Doug and the Homestead Network. And so...
And really, it was the Homestead Network's drama, not Doug's. Doug was not...
Doug ignored it. He didn't play into it or anything. But I finally got to meet Doug face to face. And I apologized to Doug. I felt like I owed Doug an apology for my participation in the Homestead Network because I felt I was guilty by association.
What year was this? 2017.
Yeah. And so...
He is very tall.
Yes. So the conference went on.
Now it was only one day at that point.
Now, the main talking tent was kind of over there. And the HOA was not where it's at currently.
It was its first year.
Yeah. And we were lucky enough and blessed that I had a really big space so I could do the demos and then our booth. And then right next to us was the Aldermans. Mm-hmm. Now, the Aldermans were a route that came from the Homestead Network. Mm-hmm. In fact, Tommy helped us through a lot of that stuff. He helped us keep our head above water. He helped us not get down in the mud. He was the big brother to me that I always wanted in my life, and he still is, and I love him to this day for it. Tommy and I, we give each other a ration of trash, but at any given point in time, if I pick up that phone and call him, I know in about 8 hours he will be here at my door.
The other thing, too, that's really cool is Patty has taken Ladessa under her wing and taught her so much about sourdough that we could, we can never say thank you enough.
Right.
So Kaylee's saying she was there the first year. Now, see, if you were... We did not meet Kaylee that first year. We were stuck at our booth. We were not able to really kind of walk around. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get a chance to meet Kaylee. We were not fortunate enough to meet her until the second year.
Right. first year. Let me paint the scene. Okay? Because this was a huge moment where God, we went through that pruning. Again, that hard pruning of, instead of pruning of learning how to take care of vegetables and animals, this was a pruning of people. This was a pruning of who our inner circle should be.
Should be.
You know, it's like what Rocky said when he was walking that girl home in the very first Rocky movie. You want to be smart, you have smart friends. You want to be rich, you have rich friends. You know, we were trying to live our life as being as connected to the Lord as possible, so we needed to have friends that were trying to do the same. And so a lot of folks got pruned. And so we were coming through this storm. And
root rot.
And this was a blessing that the Lord dropped on us here. And I'm standing there and I'm doing demos. And I could see out across the field there where I was doing demos. And I saw this older gentleman with a blue sports coat on, and he had a briefcase bag over his shoulder, and he was making a beeline straight for us. And I was like, that's him. That's the man. Mm-hmm. And he kept getting closer, and I kept going, yep. This is him. This is him. This is him. And he showed up at my booth. And I had a crowd of folks around me. And he kind of just mingled in to the crowd. And I was giving a class on the coon cuff.
And y'all, let me stop for just a second. Most of y'all that were here around this time know that everybody was like, fangirl, fangirl, fangirl. But I don't think you realize, I really want you to listen to him tell the story. Because if you really know where we came from, and you put that in perspective with what was happening, it wasn't just about a fangirl moment. Go ahead.
You're going to have to explain that because I don't even know where you're going, where you came from.
I wasn't really going anywhere. I was just saying that people don't understand. Everybody gave you such a hard time that you were fangirling because you met your hero.
Yes.
And your hero didn't disappoint you. That's the other thing, is sometimes when we meet our heroes, they disappoint us. Mm-hmm. And instead, you met your hero, and instead of you just meeting your hero and getting to meet him and be impressed by him, what happened?
He lit a fire under my booty.
But why? Why did he light a fire? What happened? Tell the story.
I don't even know what story you're talking about.
He asked you for information. Yes. This is a guy that we looked. Hey, Frank. Wait, take the picture. Wait, go this way. Mwah! I love you, Elin. But that's exactly what Mama just said. No, not fangirl. You grew so much from meeting him. And that's exactly what happened. He went from... It validated him. It made him... Because before, when all these attacks started coming, it started making him feel like he was nothing. Like it... I don't want to say emasculated, but it really took a lot away from Jason. And, you know, since the core, Jason didn't really have any really tight friends. And he had a tight friend, and then that tight friend betrayed him.
Right over here in the picture you're getting, somebody put sawdust in the air around here or something.
But, so then, this humble guy comes up, even though to us, he was the man. And he starts asking Jason
questions.
Questions about predator control.
Well, he started asking me questions about the coon cuff. And when he came up and he asked that first question, everybody turned and looked, and it was like Moses with the Red Sea. Everybody went,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they heard his voice, and they're like, wait a minute.
And so he walked right up to the front. And the next thing I know, it's just Joel and I.
And he was so engaged, y'all. I mean, I can't recreate this total, but like, he was leaning. You know how when you're telling a story and somebody's leaning forward, like they're hanging on every word? Like, that's what he was doing. He was engaging Jason, and he was asking questions that were thought-provoking. He ordered traps he bought traps from us. Like, it's awesome when you get to meet your hero, but it's also awesome when your hero validates you and says your information is worth something. You know, and that was a big, huge deal for Jason. So, after that...
Well, you just kind of like took my whole thunder there.
After that moment, they had a speaker panel. And Jason got to sit down and... Right there, next to the first egg. And so then... This picture right here captures everything. Chris said Jason did the same thing when he met me.
I don't think so. You know, Joel was there with me, and I mean, if you look at this picture again, I mean, we were there having a conversation. This was after the coon cuff conversation. And he started asking questions about fox and coyotes, and I started talking to him about the MB550. It was almost like I was being tested a little bit by him. And then from this point, we went over, and then this is where we took this picture, because this is where he came and he ordered his traps from us, and we set them off to the side until the thing was done. But he, wait a minute. What am I doing here? I don't know. Y'all got me all discombobulated. He stayed at our booth for the better part of 30 minutes the first time. And he said, I'm coming back. I'm going to get these traps. And boom. He went ahead. He signed my book. Yeah. And,
really nice guy.
Yeah. It was You Can Farm. Mm-hmm. I think it's over there. Yeah, right there. Yeah. And, he signed it. Yes, you can, Jason. Signed his name. And he was talking about how, these people are some book buying fools.
And he had no idea, like.
And he's like, these people around here are some book buying fools. They love some books. I said, do you know who you are?
Do you have any idea who you are in this community?
I said, you are the Godfather. Mm-hmm. I said, you're our Madonna. Mm-hmm. You're our big celebrity.
You don't understand.
You're our Tom Cruise, our Tom Hanks, or, whoever your favorite, insert your favorite celebrity.
Is it that one right there?
And, so he kind of giggled it off, and shortly after that, somebody come running up to me and said, Amy wants you on the Q&A panel. And so, I take over to the main stage, and I get on the Q&A panel. Well, I go out. Esther Emery is up there. We hug, say hello, because we didn't get to see each other all day either. And I sit down in my chair. Like, okay, I'm going to sit down here. And I was really having this feeling that I did not belong
there.
Up there.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reason for me to be up here. I am not an expert in any means. I didn't belong there. Well, then the next person out the door to come sit down is the man. And he sits down next to me and starts talking to me.
Don't squeal like a little girl.
And again, here I am telling myself, I'm having a conversation with this guy, with this man, and I'm like, don't scream like a girl. Don't scream like a girl. Don't scream like a girl. And so Doug and Stacy come out, and Doug's been with Joel at a couple of other conferences, and so Joel kind of turns to talk to Doug. Well, I look across the way and I see Tangy. And so I look at Tangy and I make a gesture and she's able to catch it on film. And this becomes one of the probably famous pictures from the first HOA.
Uh-huh.
And it's this one right here.
This right here catches exactly what Jason, like, that was, look at his face. Look at how excited he is.
Right. And so shortly after this picture gets taken, a lady stands up and asks a question about predator control.
Right, because he has a lot of animals and
yeah,
he
and
has to worry about that.
Asked Joel
about protecting his chickens.
Joel has the camera and he says, "I am not the guy." Microphone. I am not the guy to ask. He is, and he goes, "'Cause this guy's the man." And he hands me the mic, and I am speechless. I am dumbfounded. I am just like, to the point where I'm like staring out into space and Amy's looking at me like,
answer the question.
Talk. And I'm like, y'all got to give me a minute. Joel just called me the man. And everybody laughed. And so I was able to collect myself a little bit. And I was able to answer the question. And was
Love you, sub.
And that I needed that. Thank you, sub. And so after that, he came over to our booth again, hung out for a little bit, and he had a handful of stuff, and then all the traps that he bought. And I said, "Mr. Salatin, let me help you out. Help you take." No. I said, "Mr. Salatin, I'm a United States Marine, and if you don't let me help you, we're gonna wrestle, and I think I'm gonna win.
So can we just
not wrestle? Because you're one of my heroes, and when I die and go to heaven,
I don't want to have to answer.
I don't want to have to answer to my fellow Marines why I let my hero struggle." Mm-hmm. And he kind of giggled, and we walked to his car, which was like an '85 Honda Civic.
Yeah, whatever
at the time.
it was an older sedan.
Yeah, and so that was the first HOA. And what's the matter?
Nothing.
And then we came home. And I was like,
Pumped.
I was raw emotion after that. Because I went from feeling like I didn't matter, I wasn't doing anything correctly.
Because something that we didn't really cover, when we were talking about the personal attacks and the fallout, we lost a lot of following. Mm-hmm. There are several of you that stuck with us, but there were a lot that dropped us like a bad habit. Mm-hmm. It was part of the reason I stopped doing my oils class. There's a lot of different things that just totally took our joy away. Mm-hmm. Like we just... So this was a huge, huge thing. So when this happened, it totally just reset the button.
It was like, God, we were on our sailboat and the sails were down and we were just going with the current.
Right. And then all of a sudden, here comes this big blast of air. Right.
Blew this air into the sails. Mm-hmm.
We even, on the way home, we had issues with the truck. And we had to refinance and get everything fixed, but we were okay. Like, everything was fine. We were good. Mm-hmm. And then...
And so we come home, and I go to report to the dairy, and he shut it down. He could no longer afford doing it the way that he was doing it.
And we had just spent all of the money that we had been saving to go to HOA.
Yep, because we had to do some truck repairs on the road and...
Yeah, so we're all of a sudden, we're stuck. Well, not really, because a bunch of y'all that were still hanging around ran an auction for us. Mm-hmm. We had money to get through the winter, and that was great. So then...
I can't wait to see Elin either. I'm excited.
When are y'all coming? Are they coming?
Yes, they'll be here tomorrow evening.
Oh, okay. So then Jason real quick got online and found out he could get in with the post office. Mm-hmm. So, but that was a process. It took a couple of months before he could go in to the post office. So he got the post office job and everything was looking
up.
On the up again.
I mean, you guys, the ones that were still around at that time, did the auction and you guys raised almost a little over $1,000.
Yeah, and we made that stretch for
like 6 months.
Yeah.
And and we got the job at the dairy. I mean,
post office.
Post office. And I had to have 2 vehicles. And they were only working me one Saturday a month. And so the first vehicle went down and then I was riding in my backup. And one day, God was telling me again, I want you home. I want you homesteading. And I was fighting God. I was fighting God. I was like, no. The homesteading caused so much pain, so much hurt. I'm done with it. I'm done. I'm going to work this until I can get full time and then we're selling everything and I'm done.
Now keep in mind, we had planted a garden that year and some of y'all were around for us to do, because we started doing live streams in the middle of the day when we were harvesting. That was the year that we were harvesting like the cantaloupes and we were all excited about the dragon egg cucumbers. And so that year, that was after the Joel Salatin thing, we had started getting our oomph back to be able to do that. Yes, I was working at Granite at this point. Yes.
And my Jeep started making a noise when I was out on my route. And I called Robin and I said, hey, I need you to come with the Prius, help me finish getting this mail out, and then we'll figure out what's going on with the Jeep and try to get it home so I can get it fixed. Because I had like 2 or 3 weeks before I had to be back at work. And so I'm laying underneath the Jeep. I can't find anything wrong with it. I figured it was like a little CV joint or something that was clicking. And so we started limping home. Well, we started going down this hill. And all of a sudden, there was an explosion. The Jeep come up on 2 wheels.
It was loud, and I was in front of him, and I was watching him in my rear view.
The Jeep came up on 2 wheels, hit, bounced a couple of times, and I muscled it over to the side of the road and got it stopped. I got out of the Jeep, I ran to the woods, and I peed. Because it rocked me. Look, I told you guys we were going to be transparent.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what that's about.
Never fight God. He's the
but
master.
I don't understand why she's getting...
She's pointing fingers up.
Oh, that looked like the middle finger.
I know it does, but it's just the...
And so I ran to the woods and peed before I...
Peed on himself.
Peed on myself.
Yeah.
And
meanwhile, I've pulled the car over and I'm freaking out because there's this wave of emotion. He now has no vehicle, no job. Like, it was...
I come back, I look in the road, and there's chunks of metal embedded into the road. We had to kick out and hit with a hammer to get out of the road. Well, what happened was the 4-wheel drive, this is how God works. A couple of days, the shift beforehand, before that day, some teenage kids ran me off the road and I went into a ditch. I put the Jeep in 4-wheel drive. to get out of the ditch. Couldn't get out of the ditch, had to get pulled out of the ditch. Took it out of 4-wheel drive, made sure I was out of 4-wheel drive. But that was probably one of the first time in a couple of years
that the 4-wheel
drive has been engaged. Which mean somebody told me that all of the oil and the grease and stuff was clumped up somewhere and it just got hot and the transfer case exploded. It exploded so bad that it completely destroyed the transfer case and half of the side of the transmission. And I was mad. I was so mad. I had to resign from the post office.
So now we're back to no income on his end again.
Back to no income on my end.
But
we had a couple of friends in North Carolina that basically kind of called me out on the carpet. And, you know, when some people are right, you get it right offhand. But when some people are kind of like second parents and they're right, it's that
harder
same
to swallow
thing that you really don't want to listen to them, even though you know they're right.
Until they basically call you nonstop until you do something.
Mm-hmm.
And they smack you around real good.
Yeah. And
so we finally got Jason convinced that he needed to go to the VA and see if he could get vocational rehab.
Right.
We were under the impression that it was 30%, but apparently it was only 20%. And so Jason's 20%, so he qualified. Well, initially qualified. But then we had to go through the whole rigmarole. I had to take a day off. We had to drive up to Atlanta, get it done. But even then, it was okayed in October, but he didn't actually start school until January.
Right. So we had the second HOA come through where God started introducing, he was strengthening the relationships with Tommy, with Two Family, with Nunda and Amy, and he started introducing...
adding some more people.
Some more folks into the mix. And we met...
Well, now this one was, instead of a 1 day, it was actually 3.
Yeah.
Because they offered workshops. Thank you, Mama Grows.
Mama Grows, thank you so
awesome.
much.
They offered workshops the first day, and then the second and third day were the conference. Now, back up. You forgot about the truck.
Yes, I did forget about the truck. While I was working at the post office, I got called in to work one day. Now, keep in mind, we're struggling to make this truck payment because this truck payment was like $400 a month.
Yeah.
We were struggling to make it.
But we were making it.
I gave Blaze the keys to the truck. I said, go get feed. I have to go into work.
He was taking any shift he could because anything extra was extra money.
Right. And I said, nobody else in the truck. Go get feed. Come back. This truck is nothing like what you're used to. You know, I gave him the whole speech, the whole rundown.
I even did.
Yeah. And so...
because he was used to driving my Prius.
Yeah. I'm at the post office. I'm sorting mail. I'm the last one out because I'm still kind of slow. My phone goes off. It's one of the local paramedics. As a matter of fact, it's my hey guy. And he said, Blaze has been in a wreck. And it's a bad one. And he tried to explain to me where it was. And I had no idea where he was talking about. And it really knocked the wind out of me when he said the young lady that was with him has been airlifted to Greenville. And I said, young lady? And he was like, well, yes. And I was like, well, how old was this lady? And he's like, well, why does that matter? I said, because I'm trying to figure out if it was one of his sisters that were with him or not. And
he said no, she was at least his age, if not a little bit older.
And I was like, okay, I'll deal with that later. And I called Robin, and and that morning also, that's the morning that the first Jeep broke. It went out on me.
Yeah, because I had to go pick Jason up to go to the hospital.
And that's awesome, Sydney. And I just said, you need to come get me.
Blaze has been in an accident. And of course, being a woman, I start asking questions. It's like, I don't have the answers. I can't tell you anything.
Just get here.
Just plug in the GPS to get to the post office and come pick me up. Okay.
And so you need to take over here because
So I plug it into my GPS and I start to drive, and it literally takes me right past the accident. And so I see the truck. But keep in mind, I didn't see the passenger side. I saw the driver's side. So I see it down in, not a ditch, but like down in the grass. And so I didn't really see any of the damage of the side that was hit. But rolling up on it, I go into a huge panic. And the cops pulled me over off to the side, told me to take a deep breath. And so I had to compose myself. They told me that Blaze had been taken by ambulance and that the other girl had been. And at that point, I knew that it wasn't one of our girls. So I composed myself. I got to the post office, picked up Jason, and we went on to the hospital. We went to go see Blaze, and this was in 2018. This was March of 2018. I remember it was right before Blaze's birthday. It was on the 14th of March. And the reason I know that and I remember that is because he tells the story later. He was in the ambulance and they were trying to keep him awake because he was he had been unconscious. And so when they got him in there, they were trying to get him to tell him his name, his birthday, and everything. And they said, "Hey, man, you got a birthday coming up." And Blaze was like, "Mm-mm." And he's like, "No, it says here on your driver's license you got a birthday coming up in like 10 days. And he's like, "Nope, not going to make it." He's like, "What do you mean you're not going to make it?" He's like, "My dad is going to kill me." And he's like, "No, your dad's going to be happy that you're alive." He said, "I don't think you understand. I'm not even supposed to be on this side of town." And the girl wasn't supposed to be in the truck with me. Just nick an artery and put me out of my misery now. Like, it was very, very scary. So we get to the hospital. We called Jason's parents. Jason's parents headed down so that they could sit with the girls. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, the wrecker was somebody that knew us.
This butt clown.
And the wrecker guy calls my house. Don't know what he was thinking. I guess he thought that we didn't know about it, which I don't know how he would think that, but he called and my daughter, oldest daughter, answered the phone. Now she's 13 now, so at the time she was 11 or just turned 12. She's young. And he proceeds to tell her that Blaze has been in a bad accident, that he was carried off by ambulance, and that a young lady was taken by helicopter. Now, this happened right at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. Blaze had come several times to pick me up from work for lunch to bring me home. They had not seen Blaze, so the very first place that Carol's brain went was that the person that was being airlifted was me. she tried to call us while we were at the hospital, and I didn't answer the phone, and she went into a flat panic. I still have the message on my voicemail, just in case Blaze ever decides to be retarded, and then I can play it for him and say, this is what you put us through. I do this every once in a blue moon. But anyway, we go to the hospital. He's okay. He's bumped up and bruised, and he walked like a monkey or an ape for about 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, we called him Caesar.
Yeah.
From Planet of the Apes.
But all of that to say, we made it through it. We came out on the other side. We had excellent insurance. Yeah. Everything was handled and taken care of.
Now, God took this situation. Now, don't get what I'm getting ready to say confused or anything. Blaze owns 100% of this. He disobeyed us. He turned left instead of right. He put a female in the car that wasn't supposed to be in there. This female distracted him, and he got into this accident that could have, should have killed that young lady, because if you look at this again, the impact was right there where she was. My passenger seat, there was no more center console, was touching the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And
she wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
And wasn't wearing a seatbelt. That's probably what saved her life.
In this situation, it probably saved her life. Because it threw her over next to Blaze instead of keeping her pinned up against the door.
My son should not be here right now.
She shouldn't be here.
That young lady. My son should either be dead or in jail for vehicular homicide. Mm-hmm. The Lord used this to try to reach him. Mm-hmm. But the Lord used this to teach me a lesson. Because, see, I loved that truck. Every weekend I was washing that truck. I was waxing that truck. I was detailing that truck. I would not let you get in that truck unless you clapped your feet 3 or 4 times before you got into the truck. And
if it was muddy, you better put something down over the floorboard.
And there was been a pretty big knockdown, drag out fight because somebody decided to put her feet on the dashboard of that truck. And so if you see where I'm going with this, once I got that truck, I was spending more time with that truck. I wasn't spending time talking to God, praying in my secret place, going to church. Wasn't doing the things that normally we were doing. I was spending with this truck. And after my anger subsided at my son for being disobedient and costing us that vehicle and our accident forgiveness on our insurance and all the other stuff and making our insurance go up a little bit, it wasn't till later when God was really introducing these other people that have started to become part of our ever-growing inner circle that he revealed to me, you were worshiping that truck. And that was a hard pill for me to swallow for the longest time. Because make no mistake, I was mad at Blaze. Mm-hmm. I was very mad at my son for destroying that truck.
But then when you really started to process why you were so angry with him, mm-hmm. part of that anger...
Yeah. Because that was one of the things that God asked me when I was talking to him with one day. Why are you so mad at Blaze? Why are you so mad at Blaze? He wrecked my truck.
It's just a truck.
It's just a truck. That's not just a truck. That was my dream truck. It had a moon roof, DVD player, leather seats.
Heated
seats. Custom stereo CD player. I could pull...
Bluetooth. It had everything.
And he said, oh, is that really more important than your son? I wonder who's calling me.
I don't know.
Take over. I'm going to answer this phone call. Take over.
No, I think
Hello? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'll be right out there. Was there any sheep or any other cows with her?
we may have to cut this short, y'all. We have to go get a cow, it sounds like.
Okay. Uh, uh, all right. We are on the way. All right. Thank you. Real quick, run back there, make sure we got Daisy and all of them. Take your phone and call me as soon as you got eyes on. Count everybody.
Why does it not sound like it's ours?
I don't know,
What
but
did he
it's
say?
it's just her. She would never go just her. That's why. So, long story short, we see, there's no reason for her to be out
Yeah, that's
because
what
she's
we're...
pregnant.
Yeah.
I lost the truck. Second HOA, we met Roots and Refuge for the first time. We met a bunch of others for the first time. Breakaway helped us get to the HOA and home. And shortly after the HOA, Roots and Refuge came. And
Not in the dark.
Roots and Refuge showed up in my house, but they were a vessel of God that night. We had an awesome time on the live stream with them.
Visited with them.
And then we stayed up to like 3 o'clock in the morning just visiting with them. And Jess started to pray over us. And she started naming stuff and praying about stuff that she shouldn't have known about. And it really rocked our worlds. And we made it through 2018. Made it through.
But we were ready for 2019. Yeah. Because 2018 was rough for us.
Mm-hmm.
So 2019 started, and you got a visit from God saying, this is what I want you to do this year.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the Grow Food Not Lawns project came from. And I'm going to kind of speed this up in case we do have to go find Daisy. We were able to go to a bunch of different conferences this year. The Shindig, where we got to spend more time with Jess and Jeremiah. And Jess and Jeremiah really kind of started mentoring to us with the Lord and talking to us about God and helping us heal. Mm-hmm. Helping us heal. They really got us talking about all of the stuff that happened because of the fallout with the Homestead Network. And they got us
talking about the truck. Talking about all the different things.
I mean, they just got us talking and healing and working through things and doing all of this kind of stuff. And then the third HOA comes and we spend more time with them and more healing. The 2019 project was a huge success. We grew a lot of food out of those raised beds.
And not just that, but when we were at the Homesteading Life Conference, we got a chance to visit with Jess and Maya there too. And I got to kind of sit and listen to her visiting with other people, and she would have people come up and ask her opinion on something. And a lot of times her her approach to stuff is, why not try it? Mm-hmm. Why not do it? Because what are you going to be out? What will you gain? You'll gain the experience. whether you have, success or you have failure, you'll have the experience of what you tried.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started talking about our new project, I was like, look, I don't think we can do this the way that things are, because up until that point, I had not been doing much of anything with the planting. I was doing a little bit of weeding and harvesting, but I didn't have a whole lot going on in the planting stage. And if the kids, the problem with the kids is if they forgot to water something a day or two, it died. Mm-hmm. And that was a big problem. If you couldn't get the plant started, you couldn't get them in the ground. So I identified that problem, came home from our discussion of what we were going to do, and said, look, I'll start making the plants. I'll start putting the plants together. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we wanted to tell you about, was like, this is why we feel so confident about what we're trying to do, is because we identified some stuff, we changed our opinions and outlooks on different things, and now our inner circle, which once we thought was strong and got torn apart, we rebuilt that inner circle. And if it wasn't for the Homesteaders of America conference and other conferences bringing all of that community together and helping us grow and heal, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Right. And Jess and Jeremiah are a huge aspect with this, because Mama Oldways and the professor, they were there, and they tried to help us, to get us talking, but the season wasn't there. They helped a lot to help us move and start to try to move in a positive direction.
Yes, absolutely.
Kitty's homestead was there for a little while, and she was doing the same thing, helping us try to move in the right direction. And a lot of you guys were there. Green Gables, But Jess and Jeremiah God brought them at the right time. They were just at the right time, and they got us talking the way that it was.
It was the healing process.
It was a huge healing process to the point that I'm able to look in this screen, in this camera right now, and say, if for some reason you started watching this besides to give it a thumbs down, and you know who you are, and you made it to this part, I want you to know, I forgive you. I forgive you for all the mean and nasty things that you said about me. I forgive you for all the mean and nasty things that you said about my wife and my family, and all the mean and nasty, immature things that you did in that time frame. I forgive you. I wish you all of the best of luck in the future, and I will pray for you and your family daily. That is my commitment to you, for the last remaining hair of a friendship that I thought was there. I will pray for you daily, and I forgive you. And that, being able to look at that camera and be able to say that to that person is very huge and very powerful for me. Mm-hmm. That I am in a place now that I'm able to do that. And it wasn't, we're talking almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't something that was able to happen overnight.
Right.
And so here we are now. We have our focus back. We have our drive back. We have our ambition back. We have our joy back. We have our freedom back. And we are super excited about 2020 and what the Lord has done for us.
And the other thing you're missing is we have our inner circle. We have one that we know that we can depend on. Mm-hmm. We know we have it.
Yes. And so if you are ready to learn homesteading, you're ready to learn how to be sustainable, then, like my old football coach used to say, let's go ahead and button up that chin strap because it's time to go to work. And I'm excited to share everything that we learn when we fail. We're going to be 100% transparent with you guys. And see, this is why it couldn't have been a video. We're at almost 2 hours. And we're rushing right now because we might have a cow out. Iron sharpens iron. It's exactly right, Green Gables. And being in this position that I'm in right now, let me tell you, I love God. I love Jesus. I love my wife. I love my family. And I absolutely love life. I am full of energy and full of, what's the word?
Vigor.
Passion.
Y'all hold on because it's about to get fun.
Yeah.
Just saying. So, we're going to go ahead and cut this short because I have a feeling we're probably going to have to go catch a cow.
Or 2 or 3.
Or 5.
So, you guys pray for us as we go out at almost 8 o'clock at night. And
it's 30 degrees outside.
Put some coats on and we're going to go try to round up a cow. Hold on, let's see.
What's up?
No, Daisy. I got everybody else but her back here in this corner.
Okay. All right.
We're on our way.
All right. Bye. All right, guys. So, we got to go. That's Daisy out and about. The guy's calling me back. Robin and I want to tell you, plant smiles, grow giggles, harvest the love, be kind to one another, recycle, reuse, repurpose. Thank you guys for being here.